So the Lakers did that big deal for Russell Westbrook. I haven't really gotten a chance to sit down and talk with you guys about my thoughts on the subject yet. So we're going to do that today. Another back of the deck chat. So, as far as I'm concerned, Russell Westbrook is still a very good player. But that's kind of looking at him as an individual, just as an individual basketball player, not necessarily as a piece of a team. So I still think you would rank him in the top 20 players in the NBA. I think you probably could make the argument still being maybe in the top 15, maybe. I think top 20 is probably the best place for him to go right now in terms of just ranking guys in the NBA just individually. My concern with Russell Westbrook is he's one of the worst three-point shooters in the NBA from a value perspective because of how many threes he shoots versus how many he actually makes, his three-point field goal percentage. So yes, he's a fantastic player, a future Hall of Famer, a former MVP, but I mean, is that the guy you really want running alongside AD and LeBron James? Because AD hasn't shot lights out from three recently, and at no point has Anthony Davis been an elite three-point shooter. LeBron James is kind of hot and cold, really. You know, there's some nights where he'll go out there and he'll go 3 for 4, but he's not going to shoot like 7 threes in a game usually. So LeBron, not a high-volume three-point shooter, and not an elite three-point shooter either. So where does this leave your team? Well, if you're the Lakers, you now have Westbrook, AD, LeBron, and Marc Gasol under guaranteed contracts, I believe, for this coming season. That's your roster right now. And you might have, like Alfonzo McKinney might be under contract as well as a non-guaranteed deal, I think. So your roster is very incomplete. You've got 3 guys. You basically got 3 guys. And you got Marc Gasol, who did not look good for the most of his time in LA last year. You know, after that injury, after that championship run, then winning a FIBA World Cup, he got injured and he just doesn't look like the same player anymore. You know, I think Marc Gasol, to me, maybe they promised him a starting spot when they went out to get him, but he's not starting caliber center in my mind anymore. So Gasol's a guy you need to have coming off your bench most nights. And you want to limit him to probably about 16 to 20 minutes per night, at most. So you have 3 stars, basically. 3 stars. Backup aging center, and maybe Alfonzo McKinney. Now, luckily you have a shot to go out and get guys like Talen Horton-Tucker back. I think he's going to be a restricted free agent for you. I'm pretty sure they offered for him. They really like him. He was not involved in the trade for Westbrook, which is good for him because it means he's probably going to stay in LA. So I can't imagine they're going to trade him away at this point because he is a good contributor, and they need contributors at this point. They need guys to fill out the bench depth. So trading away Talen Horton-Tucker or not getting Talen Horton-Tucker back would be disastrous. You could also go after Alex Caruso as well, even though they have some guys. They went out and got, was it Max McClung? I forget how you say his last name, but they got him, I believe it's an undrafted free agent, I think. Maybe a second round pick. And there's talk about him maybe being like the next Alex Caruso in terms of his role and everything like that. So there's some talk in that sense, but if you're the Lakers, getting Russell Westbrook, yeah, it's another star. You now have 3 All-Stars, but is it really a good move? It's not 3-point shooting. Trading for Buddy Hield at least got you 3-point shooting. You might not have had to send as much to Sacramento as you did to Washington. And also, the contract would have been less significant that you have been taking on. But instead you get Westbrook. Okay. Well, what's Westbrook really good at? Driving to the rim, finishing around the basket, super athletic point guard. Can rebound well, which is a good thing. That's a plus for him. Like I said, very athletic. Hustle, but not necessarily a good defender. Or a great defender, at least. So he gets to the rim well. Drives to the rim well. He's a good passer. Who does that sound like? Who is a really athletic player that drives to the rim well and is a good passer? Maybe the point guard for the Los Angeles Lakers named LeBron James. And I understand LeBron's getting older, and the idea is that maybe this will take a little bit of the playmaking duties off of his legs. Maybe allow him to not have to score as much on offense, but isn't that what AD was for? I mean, yeah, Russell Westbrook's a good playmaker, but let me tell you this. The on-ball value of LeBron James is arguably greater than any player in NBA history. You're now talking about taking him off ball so Russell Westbrook can get touches. Now, I understand that this worked in some regard with James Harden and Kyrie Irving, because both those guys have to have the ball. KD can get shots no matter what. He's a spot-up guy. He can do basically whatever he wants. He can spot up, he can iso, he can do anything. Kyrie and James Harden had to be on the ball to make some production. Now, I understand it kind of worked, but that's because James Harden was willing to significantly sacrifice in his role. And James Harden, by the way, already a player who's already a significantly better scorer than someone like Russell Westbrook. And potentially a better passer as well. Got a plane going overhead right now, so that's going to be a lovely little bit for the video there. I could stop to edit this out. I could, but that'd take me a little bit longer. And also, my computer's really old and slow at this point. I just don't need the headache of going through that. So we're going to leave this part in. But as I was saying, you know, I just don't, it's not going to be a James Harden, Kyrie Irving situation. And also, those two guys were barely on the floor together, considering all the injuries Brooklyn had. So they barely had to actually show that they could work together over prolonged stretches of time. I don't see that happening in LA just because LeBron's LeBron James. He's always the number one. So the concern now, and he was, let's put it this way. I know people are saying, oh, he's washed now because of the injuries. Guys, he was top 3 in the MVP debate before he got hurt this past season. He was still top 3 in the MVP debate. So no, I don't think he's washed unless it's a serious injury that will really affect him for the rest of his career. I know LeBron James hinted that it would, but you can only trust so much of that. Some of that's propaganda, some of that's, you know how it is nowadays. Even back in the day, there was guys like MJ and Phil Jackson. They were all saying stuff like that. So it's still going on. Guys are always trying to downplay expectations to see how it plays off in the future. But you know, unless there's something really seriously wrong, I don't see LeBron James giving up a significant amount of playmaking and on-ball time for Russell Westbrook, unless you have Russ run the second unit, which I guess you could do. I don't know if he would really appreciate that, but you could do that. I just don't see a world where LeBron, whose on-ball value is astronomical, at least historically in previous years, I don't see a world where you take him off the ball to give it to Russell Westbrook, who's going to shoot threes a significant amount of time and not shoot them well. I just don't understand it. I just don't get it. You know, and now you've got 5 guys under contract. I mean, even the Clippers last year, Clippers, Nuggets, Suns, really deep teams. At least this past year. I know the Clippers are losing guys in free agency. The Suns might shed some guys as well. So will the Nuggets. But they were deep teams, and they were the best teams in the Western Conference this past year. You got 5 guys. One of them can't shoot threes to save his life for the most part. That's an exaggeration. He's just not a above-average three-point shooter. He's a below-average three-point shooter who takes a lot of three-point shots. So there's concern there for me that just is not going to mesh well in terms of their on-court play. Not necessarily their personalities. They might be friends off the court, but I just don't know if it's going to work well on the court, which can sometimes lead to strained relationships away from the net as well. What can the Lakers do to fix their roster? I should probably make a separate video on this itself because it probably would do well, but I'll say this. The rumors are linking almost everyone to either Miami, to Brooklyn, or to LA at this point. And the guys that are being thought up right now that the Lakers might go after, obviously they're trying to keep THC on board. I wouldn't be shocked if they had this communication with Alex Caruso. I'm not sure they're going to actually bring him back because of their roster crunch, but I know LeBron's liked him in the past, and he's just a good hustle player. Doesn't bring you a lot on offense, but works well on defense, and can occasionally provide a highlight reel play. So maybe they'll get in contact with him. The guys who I think they really want to go after are maybe Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard's been open, apparently, to coming back to LA for another time around. I don't know why he left to begin with, but he's open to coming back, and they really, really missed him this past year. Andre Drummond was not the guy. Marc Gasol was not the guy. I said this last year too at some point, or last season at the very least. Losing JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard, as crazy as it seems, was so significant to the Lakers declining this past year and struggling a lot more. Obviously, the injuries was the biggest part of it, but losing JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard was insanely important to the outcome of last season because it prevented the Lakers from continuing what they had done in the past, which was dominating the paint. And also losing Rajon Rondo didn't help it either. So what do you do now? You go bargain bin hunting. Go get the veterans. Get guys like Carmelo Anthony's out there. Now, will LeBron want to play with Carmelo at this point in his career? It's a question of, that could strain their relationship. These guys are really good friends. And playing, as we saw with Dwayne Wade and LeBron in Cleveland, playing with your best buddies when they're older doesn't always work out. So do you want to risk something like that? That's up to LeBron and up to Melo. We'll see about that. But Dwight, I think, would definitely be a huge add. They definitely want him back. Carmelo has proved that he has value still on an offensive end of the field. Offensive end of the court during his time in Portland. He certainly showed that. So I consider getting him. And who else will they out there? Well, Rondo. I think Rondo's out, I think, after next year. But there's going to be veteran point guards available as well. So I think you got to swoop in on one of those guys, try to get them out, and see if you can use them to maybe run the second unit if Russ isn't doing that. Or at least have someone who's a good facilitator and good defensive presence at point guard to kind of be like your third string point guard behind LeBron and Russ. If you're not shifting LeBron back to small forward again, that is, in which case, it's just a whole nother can of worms. But not a huge fan of the Russell Westbrook addition for the Lakers right now. Just not. I don't think it works well on the court. It'll be interesting to see how they finish up constructing this roster for filling up all the depth spots at this point. Well, I need to get at least one or two more guys capable of starting for this unit. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out here in the coming days. But for now, thanks for listening. I encourage you to check out some of my previous videos, especially the ones on Ben Simmons and the Philadelphia 76ers. But for now, thanks for stopping by. I'll see you later.